Like, bro, she got a kid. Look at his back. Oh my god. Another reaction, and today we're going to be reacting to How Ordinary Men Became Nazi Killers by Professor Jordan Peterson. Yeah, man. I remember I got a comment on one of our videos. It was a while ago, maybe like 2 months ago, and there was another Jordan Peterson reaction. And someone said that all of Germany had to be mentally ill in order for them to conduct these things. No, they did not have to be mentally... You're telling me 60 million people were mentally ill whenever they decided they hated Jews and they need to be kicked out of Germany? Come on, bro. This was sediments that were building up over centuries of hatred. Centuries. But yeah, man. To think that a whole country had mental illness? No, these were just people who were in an environment where this type of behavior was good. This type of behavior was accepted. And this type of thinking, this dark hatred that they used to influence regular people. These were teachers, plumbers, the guy at the newsstand. These are regular guys, bro. It's more criminals that rose out of the dirt, jumping out of trees and shit. Is ready to start killing people. Nah. He was your next door neighbor. But yeah, we finna hop right into this reaction.
There's a book called Ordinary Men that's a lot like that. I don't think I've mentioned that to you before, but Ordinary Men is a book about, it's the best book of its type. Maybe it's the only book of its type. It's possible, but it's plotted much like Breaking Bad in some sense. It's a story about these German policemen in early stages of World War II. And they were guys who were old enough to be raised in Germany really before the Hitlerian propaganda came out in full force. You know, if you were a teenager, say in the 1930s, you were going to be pulled right into the propaganda machine, and maybe you were part of the Hitler Youth, and like you were raised in that, you know. But if you were older, then you were raised before that, and you're not as amenable to propaganda once you're older than about, well, I would say about 22 or something like that. It's pretty young, actually. If you're going to make a soldier, you have to get a soldier young, because once people are in their early 20s, say, they're they already have their personality developed. Anyways, these policemen were sent into Poland after the Germans marched through, and you know, it was wartime.
Einsatzgruppen, the very first, these were the people who came in after the Wehrmacht, and they would just annihilate entire villages. They began the process of the Nazis ethnic cleansing the East so they can make room for the Germans and their superior peoples.
And there was this hypothesis in Germany that the Jews in particular were operating as a fifth column and undermining the German war effort because, of course, the Germans blamed the Jews and a variety of other people for actually setting up the conditions that made the war necessary. And so when the police were sent into Poland, they were also required to make peace, roughly speaking. And so they started out by rounding up all the Jewish men between 18 and 65 and gathering them in stadiums and then shipping them off on the trains. But that isn't where they ended. They ended in a very, very dark place. I mean, these guys were going out in the field with naked pregnant women and shooting them in the back of the head by the end of their training. And what's really interesting about that is that their commander told them that they could go home at any time. So this is not one of those examples of people following orders. And the reason...
That's an example for me, man. You're afraid of what people's going to say about you. You go back to Germany, or you wasn't strong enough to stay on the front and fight with the other men, or it's just, I don't know. People always say, "Oh, I wouldn't be like that." You say that now, but if you be the same person whenever like someone brings up an alternative opinion, you'd be afraid to speak up and chime in because everybody else in the room is like, yeah, it's the same thing, bro. It's that conformity, bro. It's very dangerous.
They didn't, roughly speaking, there's many reasons, but one of the reasons they didn't is because they didn't think it was comradely, so to speak, to leave the guys they were working with to do all the dirty work and run off. Yeah. You know, and that's really an interesting fact, you know, because in different circumstances, you wouldn't think about that as reprehensible, right? You'd think, well, that's part of teamwork under rough circumstances, and that's at least in part how they viewed it. And they were also made physically ill multiple times, physically and psychologically ill by the things that they had to do, but they kept doing them anyways.
Yeah.
So it's one step at a time. And that's the thing, is that you end up in very bad places one step at a time. So you got to watch those.
All that would eventually lead into the final solution because, you know, obviously Himmler just kept getting report after report of soldiers complaining that they can't necessarily handle shooting large groups of children in the back of the heads and watching their skull fragments fly everywhere. Isn't that a psychopath? Even if you hate a certain group of people, just blowing someone's head off, I feel like is going to make you feel a certain type of way. If it don't, yeah, bro. But yeah, man, I enjoy these Jordan Peterson videos. If you like the video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share. But we'll see you next time. Peace.